Very good evening. This is India Global. I'm Gaurie Dwivedi. Let's start the show with headlines coming in.
And splashdown. Crew 9 back on Earth. And splashdown.
Sunita Williams' homecoming. Astronauts picture perfect splashdown. Donald Trump on Williams returned. He says that promises made, promises kept. Prime Minister Modi says unwavering determination inspires millions. President Putin agrees to 30-day pause on energy attacks, but no truce on Ukraine war. Ukrainian President Zelensky is now set to dial Donald Trump after the call did not lead to a ceasefire yesterday. External Affairs Ministry reacts to renewed Israeli attacks on Gaza. It says that concerned over the situation and it's important that hostages are released. It's a big NDTV World exclusive with Israeli Envoy Reuven Azar, who says that war will continue until the hostages return. President Trump releases over 2 new JFK assassination files. 60,000 new pages on JFK assassination have now been declassified. Who killed JFK? Will that mystery finally be solved? Top story on India Global from Pakistan, where the Army Chief General Asim Munir has emphasized the need to turn Pakistan into a hard state. Now, why is he saying that? He is asserting that the struggle against militancy was a battle for the country's survival. General Munir made these remarks at a high-level meeting of the Parliamentary Committee on National Security that was convened after the Baloch militants hijacked a passenger train that led to 25 passengers losing their life. The Sharif government has been criticized and has criticized Imran Khan's PTI for boycotting this meeting amidst rising terrorism. Now, the question we ask is that there are many fronts that Pakistan is now battling on, all of which is its own doing. Why? Viewers, because of the state policy of promoting terror, using terror as a state instrument is now coming back to bite the Pakistani state. It has to address the Baloch insurgency. How will it do that? It has to address the issues and the growing attacks coming from TTP. How is it going to do that? It has no answers because the state policy towards terror is the reason for its instability, its acute turmoil. How is it going to get out of it? Or is it going to be the beginning of the end in terms of the present state of Pakistan? I'm not making these comments lightly. I say this because there is a growing belief that the attacks it faces, the insurgency it is now facing and has to battle, may have larger consequences. What those consequences could mean, let's get in Prabhu Dayal, former ambassador, joining me on the broadcast. He is also, in fact, former Consul General in Pakistan, and let's also get in Fakhar Yousafzai, a Pakistani journalist, one of those rare breed of Pakistani journalists who is and strives to be as independent as he can. And in fact, Fakhar, let me give you that opening comment on the broadcast, which is that these are not just stray incidents that the Pakistani state is facing. And that's the reason why Sharif government as well as the army chief know they need to have a plan in place. The question I'm asking you is, does the government have a plan in place?
Thank you very much and good evening to both of you. Actually, this point is discussing by all the journalists, by the ordinary Pakistanis on daily basis, that what is the planning of the government. Yesterday, we have seen the national security meeting in the parliament, and all the chiefs as well as the parliamentarian was appear there. But I think so there was not a clear strategy for controlling or cope up with this critical situation which is going on in Pakistan, especially in the two provinces of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa as well as in Balochistan, and the political stability and the unity. We miss that. I think so. Pakistan Tehreek Insaf is a larger party in Pakistan, and they have the big fan following in Pakistan. They will disappear, and especially the two other the Baloch parties. The Sardar Akhtarjan Mangal Party, Balochistan National Party, as well as the Pukhtunkhwa Milli Awami Party, which is led by the Mahmud Khan Achikzai of Balochistan. They were disappeared from this very important meeting, which were about the controlling or cope up with the situation of terrorism in Pakistan. I think so. This is very important for all the political leaders as well as for all the Pakistanis, that we should be united for against these type of things. Otherwise, there is no clear way.
Okay, one thing is unity, second is a plan, and third is intent. Let's get in Ambassador Dayal to answer that. The fact that Pakistan is facing these attacks, the fact that insurgency and turmoil, many believe, may even increase, may impact its economy, may have larger geopolitical ramifications. Remember, India shares a border with Pakistan, so what is happening internally has ramifications for us on many fronts. How do you see this? And again, do you see that there is a plan in place to address this?
Well, first of all, let me put it this way. There is an old saying, as you sow, so shall you reap. Now, for several decades, the Pakistan government, especially the army and its intelligence wing, the ISI, have used terrorism as an instrument of state policy. In particular, Pakistan has used state-sponsored terrorism against India. Terrorist outfits like Jaish-e-Mohammed and Lashkar-e-Taiba have been nurtured and funded by the Pakistan government. And terrorists who were trained and armed by the Pakistan army have been infiltrated into the Indian state of Jammu and Kashmir to try and kill innocent people and wreak havoc. Now, this policy of using terrorism as an instrument of state policy has backfired on Pakistan. Hillary Clinton had said during her trip to Pakistan several years ago that you can't keep snakes in your backyard and expect them only to bite your neighbors. You know, eventually these snakes are going to turn on whoever has them in the backyard.
Indeed.
And the Pakistan Army chief
And
should
that's what is
realize this
happening.
very basic truth.
That is what is happening. And that is why I said, and what I said at the beginning of this discussion, that there are serious territorial implications and ramifications of what is happening. The fact that Balochistan is about 40% of Pakistan, and the fact that in Balochistan, the Pakistani army is really struggling at this stage, and there is a momentum that these Baloch insurgents have right now with them, in favor of them, doesn't augur well for the Pakistani state, does it, Fakhar?
You're right. The situation is not good for the military forces in Balochistan, and it's a tough situation they are facing from, especially from last 2 years. They are facing the critical situation, and BLA is giving them a very tough target and tough situation. As well as this situation is concerned, I think this is not started today or yesterday or 3 or 4 days ago. I think it started from the decades. But we didn't make a right policy, I think. So this is very important. If we did that, of course, today we will not facing this situation which is going on in Balochistan. I think so. There were so many leaders. Nawab Akbar Khan Bukti Saab was the big leader of the Baloch people, and they follow them. But after his assassination, I think so the situation is gradually out of control from 2007, from the General Musharraf regime. And after that onward, from last 18 or 19 years, I think so there is no other way by the BLA, but they are attacking the military forces, and they are not going for any dialogues and things like that, and they are not accepting any offer from the Balochistan government or as well as from the federal government. And I think so we didn't
Okay.
try to for the dialogue except the Nawaz Sharif government in 2013. We
No
didn't
effort
go
was
for
made
that.
to
And
speak to them, and also their core concerns, the fact that they are not part of the economy of Balochistan, which is being exploited by Chinese investments. That core concern hasn't been addressed so far. Ambassador Dayal, as we sort of wrap things up here, final comment. How do you see this panning out for the state of Pakistan the next 1 year or so, given that it's not one front alone? There is Balochistan, there are growing attacks from TTP, the fact that there is tension on the Durand line. How do you see them all coming together for Pakistan?
Well, as I see it, the ongoing developments in Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa point towards the deep-seated anger of the people there against the Pakistan establishment, particularly the armed forces. And the situation on the ground in both these provinces of Pakistan is extremely serious. Both of them want to break away from Pakistan and be independent. Now, people in these two provinces feel that they have been systematically exploited by the Punjabi-dominated Pakistani establishment, and they want to end this exploitation. So far from getting resolved, I think the situation on the ground is worsening by the day.
All right, we leave it there. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me on this edition of India Global. On that note, a quick break. We come back with more stories on the other side. Stay with us.
Children affected by the war in Ukraine still need our help. Hospitals, homes and schools have been destroyed. Energy supplies cut off. Families are still displaced from their homes. UNICEF is working for all children affected by the war in Ukraine, providing clean water, family hygiene kits and safe spaces to rest, learn and play. To find out how you can help, search UNICEF Ukraine online or text Ukraine to 84901. In my years reporting on war, I've seen its impact on children. But I've seen how UNICEF makes a difference day by day. £25 could help provide emergency supplies like safe water, maternity kits, or essential vaccines. Search UNICEF Ukraine or text Ukraine to 84901 and help children caught up in this terrible war today.
Find a pet-friendly Italian restaurant with outdoor seating nearby and text it to Luca.
Find it real quick. Send it to the click. Well, this is sick.
Get your Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra with Galaxy AI and save up to £744 when you trade in a Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra on 3. Life needs a big network.
The all-new Tempur Pro, our most adaptive mattress ever. Born from NASA technology, billions of ultra-sensitive cells relieving even more pressure for ultimate comfort and support. Now available with SmartCool technology. Tempur, the future of sleep is here.
I'm in. Okay, now, you can have a great first day. I promise, all right? Give me that.
Your donations helped 3D print his heart to guide his surgery and saved his life with a groundbreaking innovation. And the future breakthrough that could cure her is closer than ever. Help us turn science fiction into reality and save more lives like hers. Donate to the British Heart Foundation now.
turning attention to Bangladesh, where the new student-led party, that is the National Citizen Party, has expressed that they don't want Awami League, the party of the deposed Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, to participate in the upcoming elections as and when they take place. And that's a very serious thing, because what are we then talking about in terms of these elections? What are we talking in terms of the democratic roadmap that Mohammad Yunus's government needs to put in place? The NCP leader, Nahid Islam, said that those within the Awami League, well, he says, are responsible for wrongdoing must be put on trial at first, and that Bangladesh's politics can no longer be centered around the influence of either Pakistan or India. Since Sheikh Hasina's ouster last year, the Yunus government has been targeting the former Prime Minister and those associated with her and the Awami League, seizing their properties and bank accounts. When asked if the NCP wanted the polls to be held, Nahid Islam said an election is not our immediate priority, and we are not at present setting a specific timeline for the election. It's not about when an election will take place. It's about as and when an election will take place. If you don't have Awami League, what are you doing and what are you really establishing in terms of the democratic framework? Of course, there were efforts that were made by Sheikh Hasina's party last year. The reason why the turmoil probably took place and expanded to the extent that it did, but doesn't mean that the same mistakes have to be repeated all over again. Let's get in Dr. Siddharth, who's a fellow at CSDR, Council for Strategic and Defense Research, to understand what this means in terms of A, the return to democracy, and B, the larger change in the political framework of Bangladesh. Siddharth, explain to us how significant this is and its long-term implications for Bangladeshi politics.
Thank you for having me here. I'd just like to maybe set the context. So the context is that Bangladesh has been stuck between revolutionary impulses since August last year and the eventual end goal, which is normal electoral politics, representative democracy, right? And the students' wing of the interim government, Students Against Discrimination, has had a good run until now because they have been able to present themselves as representative of the people of the nation because they were at the forefront of the revolution, right? Now, as they have formed the political party and as they've taken the plunge towards electoral politics, I think they will lose some of that moral force, that sheen, and increasingly they will be seen not as innocent representatives and heroes of the revolution, but as a force that has stakes in power, that wants to acquire power and will try to form its own coalitions and will have its own networks of patrons and so forth, right? So in that sense, this could be a net positive for India because India has always hoped that Bangladesh quickly move towards a more pragmatic form of electoral democracy. And not simply, and what we've been seeing over the last 2 months especially is a breakdown in the law and order, which even the proponents of the revolution, including Nahid Islam in his interview, has said that there has been an escalation of chaos. The primary victims of which have been increasingly women, increasing amounts of moral policing against women.
Yes.
There was a very ugly attack on Tanveer Imam's house,
Radical
a member
Islam
of
is also taking shape and
Exactly.
becoming more prominent as a thought in Bangladesh right now.
Yes. As we see these forces emerge, for instance, the HUT and the movement for Khilafat, I think there will be a sentiment in civil society that, there was a reason why Sheikh Hasina was still somewhat popular, why the Awami League still exists.
Yes.
And despite maybe some excesses, so that is a force that so at this point, if the Awami League is banned and extricated from the national mainstream, then it will be a signal to more radical forces that their
Indeed.
time has
I was
come.
coming to just that is this going to be a stepping stone to more radical or radicalization of Bangladesh being complete to that extent?
Yes, exactly. So much hinges on that. And one would hope that those who are in the position to make decisions, be it the army chief, be it the interim government, Mohammad Yunus, I hope that they take that into account, that it is up to them if they want to restore stability, which is important for the economy, for their foreign relations, for relations with India. Then much of that depends on how they look at Awami League. And just to take one more minute, I think there's a lesson. I mean, I don't like India to give lessons to many countries, but in this case, India does have a good track record. We are the only long-standing surviving representative democracy in the region. One would recall how Indira Gandhi imposed the emergency in 75, lost elections in 77, but India as a republic did not ban any political party like the Congress party, right? It's the people who would decide whether the emergency was around, right? And so in South Asia, democracy is a healer, it's a stabilizing force. And if Bangladesh wants to be stable and improve its GDP and all of that, then banning Awami League will definitely not be a good
answer. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Siddharth, for joining me today on India Global. And I'm going to now turn attention to the tragic case about Sudiksha Konangi, where a judge in the Dominican Republic has granted a request for freedom for Joshua Stephen Ribe, who investigators believe was the last person to see missing U.S. student Sudiksha Konangi alive nearly 2 weeks ago. After an extensive search, Sudiksha's parents have asked officials to declare their daughter legally dead. This report brings you up to speed with that tragic case.
Authorities have identified a person of interest in the case of Sudiksha Konangi's disappearance.
The man has been questioned over disappearance of a college student during spring break in Dominican Republic.
But nobody knows where the body is, and that's the big question.
A judge has ordered the release of Joshua Ribe, the last known person to see 20-year-old Sudiksha Konangi alive. But while he walks free, her parents are left with nothing. No answers, no closure, not even a body to mourn. Konangi vanished nearly 2 weeks ago while on a spring break trip to the Dominican Republic. Ribe told investigators they were drinking in the ocean and caught in a current. Ribe claims that after struggling to get back to shore, he vomited seawater, fell asleep on a beach chair and never saw Sudiksha again. Authorities say there is no evidence of foul play and Ribe has not been named a suspect. But for Sudiksha's parents, that does not bring closure. After days of searching, they have now asked officials to declare their daughter legally dead. A young woman disappeared without a trace. The only person of interest is free to go, and a family is forced to accept the worst without ever knowing what really happened to their daughter. With Ridhima Kedia, Bureau Report, NDTV World. US President Donald Trump has released thousands of records related to the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, seeking to honor his campaign promise to provide more transparency about the shock events in Texas that took place decades ago. Soon after resuming office, Trump signed an executive order directing the release of those classified files related to the assassination of JFK, Robert F. Kennedy, and Martin Luther King Jr. While many files related to JFK's assassination have been made public, the documents released had previously had been redacted. So it remains to be seen whether this will finally solve the mystery about JFK files or not. This report tells you more.
The assassination of former US President John F. Kennedy in 1963 has long been a source of intrigue and speculation. The release of almost 80,000 previously classified documents has reignited the flames of curiosity. Documents released show that the CIA investigated anonymous phone calls made to the US Embassy in Australia just before and after the assassination. According to the documents, the top Australian spy boss, Sir Charles Spry, had asked the CIA to keep the probe secret. JFK's nephew, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who is now a member of the Trump cabinet, has alleged CIA involvement in his uncle's death. JFK's murder has been the subject of unending conspiracy theories, despite the assassination being attributed to lone gunman Lee Harvey Oswald. Interestingly, the documents reveal that Oswald was never under the Russian intelligence agency's control. Despite the excitement around the files, there seems to be no groundbreaking unveiling of truth, and the narrative doesn't seem to have been altered. Historians and scholars do not expect major revelations.
So there are going to be surprises in there, but I just don't think there are going to be that many surprises about JFK's assassination.
So far, 99% of Kennedy papers have been released. According to reports, more than 2,100 files remain fully or partially withheld, and another 2,500 remain under court-ordered seals, likely to fan more conspiracy theories. With Vishal Vivek, Bureau Report, NDTV World.
Quick break, more on the other side. Stay with us.
Discover the finest quality made-to-measure window dressings, exclusively online, delivered direct to your door. Shop now for an extra 20% off and free delivery at blindsdirect.co.uk.
I love this car. But what if it gets cracked? Can I actually do this? Oh, yes.
What's that like?
Said, let's do this.
Enjoy the leap with Churchill.
Years ago, we used to just fall asleep with a face full of makeup.
Number 7 Future Renew Damage Reversal Serum with a world-first peptide technology, exclusive to Number 7. Clinically proven to reverse visible signs of skin damage. Save £10 on Number 7 Future Renew, available at Boots.
Quidco gives you cash back every time you shop on over 5,000 brands. It always pays to Quidco. Sign up and start saving today. Visit quidco.com.
From interesting tech startups to industry-leading companies, politics, sports, culture, curry, cricket. Oh, there's so much to talk about. Like me, if you too thrive on interesting conversations, this is a show you cannot miss. Watch this space to know more about all matters and all people that make Britain what it is today. Out of Britain, with me, Radhika Iyer.
One of your primary concerns and one of your primary responsibilities is to deal with the threat of terror. And at the moment, we see a great deal of that out of Yemen. We see attacks on shipping taking place, and we see the United States being very much on the offensive. Is that a prelude for something larger, perhaps even a ground offensive going forward?
I mean, you look at President Trump's leadership going back through his first term as president, he has been and remains very committed to combating and defeating the threat of Islamist terrorism that not only affects the United States, the American people, our own safety and security, but it is affecting so many people in different parts of the world. We can see different terrorist groups, the Houthis in Yemen being one of them, that President Trump has redesignated after President Biden took them off of the terrorist list, redesignated them appropriately as a terrorist organization, and taking action where the previous administration failed to.
Right.
The Houthis have been disrupting maritime trade and passage for a very long time, and no serious effort has been taken to stop that disruption. Our country and other countries should not be in a position to have to make a decision to reroute commerce going through that area simply because of the Houthi threat that exists. So President Trump has taken decisive action for our own safety, security, and prosperity.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has agreed to temporarily pause attacks in Ukraine's energy infrastructure, but a broad US-backed ceasefire deal to end the Ukraine war has been rejected. In a rare phone call with President Trump on Tuesday, this is what has been agreed upon. Shortly after the call, reports emerged of Russian drones targeting Kiev and other cities of Ukraine. And Volodymyr Zelensky has in fact dismissed Putin's agreement as very much at odds with reality, following the wave of drone strikes across the country. He also highlighted that territorial concessions would be a major challenge in any future negotiations. Zelensky has also indicated plans to speak with Donald Trump to discuss details of his conversation with Putin. Meanwhile, Kremlin has accused Ukraine of sabotaging ceasefire talks, claiming that it is the Ukrainian leadership that is unwilling to negotiate that is a cause of concern. Kremlin also confirmed further talks are planned, which are expected to be confirmed over the course of the next 24 to 48 hours. Now, what is the way forward when it comes to this war? How will it end? What are the terms on which it will end? What really is the path towards peace? That is what we're going to discuss with the guests joining me today on the broadcast. Let's put those big questions on the screen as well to understand what is it at stake here. Firstly, Putin's truce terms on Ukraine aid, are they a sticking point? The second key question that I will pose to the guests is Trump and Putin, are they making contradictory claims in terms of who said what is the position, and what's the way forward? Will Donald Trump yield to Russia's demands to reach truce? That is what is increasingly looking like as a possibility. And will the halt on energy attacks really be the beginning of a larger peace deal? And is that really on the table still? And lastly, what about those sanctions that President Trump spoke about just about a fortnight ago, less than a fortnight ago? What happens to those? Will they be implemented, or will that be a lever that will probably be used for another day? Let's get in Fred Wire, who's a senior journalist joining me from Russia. Andrew Latham joining me from Minnesota. Thanks much, gentlemen, for joining me on this edition of India Global. In fact, let me start with you, Fred. The fact is, as things stand right now, there is as much clarity as there was probably before this call, only difference being that energy attacks may not happen, but that is no indicator of whether or not there is a larger peace deal on the table.
Yes, well, first of all, both sides launched swarms of drones against each other last night, and they're both angrily accusing each other this morning. But in fact, the ceasefire is not yet in effect. Its terms and conditions haven't been settled, so that will happen in Riyadh on Sunday. And how these things normally work is they hammer out the terms, and then they set a day and an hour when the ceasefire will officially begin. That hasn't happened yet. So much of this talk about today is pointless. I don't know. I'm a glass half full kind of guy. I think that Putin agreeing to a partial ceasefire is progress. Of course, it is a ceasefire in an area where they both will benefit, because both Russia and Ukraine have suffered terribly from these infrastructure attacks. Russia against Ukraine's electricity grid, Ukraine against Russian oil refining and storage capabilities. So it's not a terribly dramatic step. A lot depends on what is being hammered out.
Okay.
Under the carpet, and that we don't know.
Okay, Professor Andrew, how confident are you, how optimistic are you that a peace deal is still on the table? Because from what it looks like, it's a very small aspect of what the larger conversation needs to be, which is attacks on energy infrastructure.
Well, I'm a glass entirely empty kind of guy, unlike my colleague here. I don't see, you have to differentiate between a short-term ceasefire and a permanent peace. Short-term ceasefire is problematic in and of itself. President Putin knows that his forces are winning. They've pushed the Ukrainians out of the Kursk salient. They're making slow but steady progress in Donetsk, in the broader Donbass, in fact. He knows
so
he's
they've got
winning
the
this
military
war.
momentum with them. They've managed to get some sort of a reprieve, but they've been able to ensure that nothing major in terms of a larger discussion is on the table, which means that the military momentum can continue, allowing President Putin to probably come back on a table at a time when he'll have more leverage against Ukraine.
Yes, and if we look beyond any kind of 30-day ceasefire and we look at the basis for a durable long-term peace, there's almost no common ground. The Russians are going to insist on not just holding the territory they have, but getting all of those 4 oblasts, all of those territories which are embedded in the Russian constitution. They're not going to compromise on this, and President Zelensky and the Ukrainians are not going to compromise. They've said flat out, yeah, we'll have to put up with the occupation for a while, but we will never recognize the Russian sovereignty over these 4 provinces or oblasts. That's not going to happen. And so even just that makes it almost impossible to negotiate a peace deal. And there's the broader issue about predators and prey. Predators don't negotiate with prey. And I think we know who the predator is here, and I think we know who the prey is.
Fred, you want to come in there? You want to come in on the fact that what happens to these territories, and that is really the sticking point, isn't it? It's not intel, it's not aid, it is those territories.
No, I don't think that the Russian priority is territory. Yes, they have annexed in their own legal system those 4 oblasts, and they will insist on them. But the main Russian demand, and I get this from Russian foreign policy experts all the time, is about the type of Ukrainian state that will emerge. They want a state that will be not only neutral, but substantially demilitarized. They want a sort of jumped up Finlandization of Ukraine. It can have its own territorial integrity, and absent those annexed lands, it can have its own form of government. It can have they even say it can join the EU, but it has to be firmly in the Russian sphere of influence in those fundamental ways, in that it will never again be, as they see it, a Western outpost jutting into Russia's gut. That's the way they put it. I'm pretty sure that even if Putin wasn't winning on the battlefield right now, he would be insisting on that. So if Trump can't pull it out of the hat, the Russians will just keep on fighting.
Andrew, is that what you think is likely to happen?
I couldn't agree more. I think there's that territorial piece I think is actually quite important, but what they want is a buffer between them, between Russia and NATO. And I think they would be open, Putin would be open to Ukraine joining the European Union, although that was a sticking point at some point. But NATO is absolutely not on the table. And you know what? NATO's own rules don't allow a state to join NATO if they have disputed borders. So that's a non-starter. Some of the other adjacent issues are whether there'll be French or British boots on the ground to reassure the Ukrainians in any kind of peace agreement. Putin has said absolutely no. Zelensky has said, yeah, we'd really like somebody to be here to back us up. And if it's not the Americans, it's going to have to be the Europeans. But I don't see, even if I can concede the possibility of some kind of truce and ceasefire, I just don't see the prospect of reconciling the irreconcilable, which has to do both with territory and also with Ukraine's place in that part of the world.
All right, so as things stand right now, peace, any negotiated settlement is a long way off, and it's anybody's guess as to how long it will take for all parties to get there. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me in this edition of India Global. And on that note, I'm going to shift focus now to Sunita Williams. After spending 9 long, arduous months in space, she is now back, and in fact, her earthward journey has been nothing less than miraculous. The Indian origin NASA astronaut Sunita Williams and her fellow crewmates are back on ground, and this report tells you everything you need to know about their 9-month-long ordeal.
Dragon re-enters the Earth's atmosphere. All of that is expected. Altitude plane. And there you see it on your screen, drogue deployment.
After a 9-month-long wait, NASA astronauts Sunita Williams and Butch Wilmore are stuck in space no more, bringing an end to the highly publicized and politicized saga that first began in June last year, after a bungled Boeing test mission extended their 8-day stay in space. The unplanned odyssey ended after the SpaceX Dragon capsule, carrying 4 astronauts, parachuted off the coast of Florida in the early hours of Wednesday morning. A photogenic landing with clear blue skies and a pod of dolphins greeting the joyful astronauts back to Earth. A vision of human innovation meeting nature.
It is awesome. They have Crew 9 home, just a beautiful landing.
Emerging from the capsule, the astronauts were seen smiling and waving to cheers and applause from the recovery crew, before being whisked away for medical evaluation to the Johnson Space Center in Houston, where they would be reunited with their families and continue to adjust to their return to Earth. On her return home, Williams has become the astronaut with the second longest combined time in space, 608 days over 3 visits to the space station, the first in 2006.
Like her other crew members now will be assisted onto the mobility aid.
Their long-awaited return was celebrated across the globe, including in India, at Williams' ancestral village in Gujarat. Prime Minister Narendra Modi too welcomed the duo back to Earth, saying that their unwavering determination in the face of vast unknown will forever inspire millions. Meanwhile, the Trump administration, who had previously blamed the Biden government for quote-unquote abandoning the astronauts in space, was quick to take credit for their successful return. While NASA officials largely dodged questions about Trump and Elon Musk's claims.
Our job at NASA is to successfully and safely fly these missions. We fly it with the laws of physics, and we fly it with our commercial partners. And so oftentimes there may be things out in the press that may not be exactly what's happening. And our job is to fly these missions, and regardless of what you read in the press, our job is to fly successful missions, safe missions, and do the science we do on board the International Space Station.
Despite the politicization of this mission, NASA reiterated the importance of working with private partners such as Boeing and SpaceX. Nevertheless, Sunita Williams and Butch Wilmore's safe return is a testament to the power of human resilience and the lengths it can take humanity. Disha Bagchi for NDTV.
Well, on that note, we slip into a break. On the other side, viewers, we have the NDTV World exclusive with Israeli envoy Reuven Azar, who explains why Israel decided to go ahead with fresh strikes during the holy month of Ramadan. You want to hear that after this very short break. Stay with us.
It feels good knowing that your future's in hand. Airflow can offer you a loan from £1,000 to £15,000. Get your conditional decision in minutes.
Whatever you need to ask about cancer, Macmillan's free support line is just a call away.
Hello, Macmillan.
Whether it's money...
Am I going to lose my job?
Getting on with life.
Can I still go abroad? Get insurance?
Or just need someone to listen.
How do I tell them?
Our specialist advisors are here to help as often as you need them. Whatever you need to ask, cancer, money, life, call us now on 0808 134 1000.
I gotta be me.
In here.
I gotta be me. What else can
This lunchtime, go all Crispin with Walkers.
Together, we are sight savers. Together, with local doctors and nurses, we are treating millions of people with diseases or conditions that cause sight loss. Together with parents and carers, we are helping families live free from the fear of children going blind from avoidable causes. And together with those who have left a gift in their will to sightsavers, we are doing all this and more. Since 1950, in over 30 countries, we've provided over 1.5 billion treatments to help prevent blindness and other conditions. But there's more to be done. Together, we can create a future where diseases that cause sight loss are eliminated from whole communities. Get your free guide to leaving a gift in your will by calling 0800 038 2283 or searching Sight Savers Legacy. Leave a gift in your will to Sight Savers. And together, we can create a future where no one goes blind from preventable causes.
Who do I trust for business insurance?
If you need business insurance, join nearly 1 million customers who trust...
Today, criminals can use AI to invade your online privacy. Norton VPN Ultimate. Advanced tech for advanced threats.
With Post Office Over 50s life cover, enjoy peace of mind knowing your family will receive a guaranteed payout when you're gone. UK resident 50 to 80, your guaranteed acceptance. no health checks and from just £1.15 a week. Plus free 24/7 GP access with the health and wellbeing benefit. Purchase and receive a £125 gift card for amazon.co.uk, Tesco or M&S. Call Post Office on 0800 171 2211.
Viewers, so welcome to a very special conversation that I will have with Israeli Ambassador Reuven Azar, who will speak to NDTV at a time when the ceasefire, well, it expired on 1st of March, and what has happened in the last 24 hours has been fresh attacks on the Gaza Strip. What is the reason for it? What happens to that peace negotiations, which was fragile? And what's the future of this entire region, given the fact that as things stand, 59 hostages are still with Hamas. Peace talks have all but broken. What's the future ahead is what we'll get a word from Reuven Azar. Thank you so much, sir, for speaking to NDTV.
Thank you, Gaurie, for inviting me.
It's a tough time that we are speaking on, but one of the first things I want to ask you is that both parties are accusing the other of breaking the ceasefire, which is why you've seen those attacks that have taken place. What's the rationale for Israel to attack at a time when, which is also the holy month of Ramzan, where the attacks have taken place in the last 36 hours?
Well, Gaurie, as you probably remember, we agreed to a 42-day temporary ceasefire in order to negotiate the resolution of this conflict, which means bringing back our hostages and make sure that Hamas cannot rearm and regroup and continue controlling the Gaza Strip. Unfortunately, Hamas has rejected the proposals of the American mediator time and again and has stopped releasing hostages. We had to go back to military pressure. This is something that is also backed by the United States, because if we cannot achieve this achievement diplomatically, we have to do it militarily.
Okay. So, but again, the accusation has been that there was no rejection by Hamas, because these attacks have been condemned by countries the world over. And what's the rationale for continuing it? And more importantly, how long are you going to continue these attacks?
Well, first of all, it is a fact that they rejected the American proposals because the American administration has stated that. So we are fully coordinated with our American friends, and condemnations cannot replace the fact that we have a terrorist organization in the Gaza Strip that is not only holding hostages from Israel, they are holding hostage the entire Palestinian population. They are taking the humanitarian aid that the world is sending, selling it to the population, blending into the population, and trying to extort a surrender from Israel. This is not going to happen. It's ridiculous. So what we expect from the international community is to put pressure on Hamas and create peace in our region through a diplomatic process that will take the top brass of Hamas out of Gaza, will give hope to the Palestinian people with a new moderate leadership that can actually allow real assistance from the world in reconstruction of the Gaza Strip, in a better future for Palestinian people. This is what is the common interest. So whoever says that we shouldn't use military power basically says that we have to surrender to a terrorist organization that will continue, having a grip on Gaza forever. This cannot be acceptable.
So phase one of the ceasefire expired on 1st of March. After that, Israel stopped aid into Gaza after that. It's been 17 days since then, 18 days since then. And while these attacks continue, the hostages and their families, in fact, I'm going to quote one of them, which says, one of the 3 former hostages, which says that military options endanger their lives directly. So what happens to those 59 hostages? Because their families are protesting, there are large protests that are taking place, and all of them are saying that if there are no talks, well, there are very little hope.
Well, first of all, Israel continues to supply water and electricity to the Gaza Strip. The trucks have stopped, yes, but there is enough food in the Gaza Strip. Now, it is right that when you start using military pressure, the stakes are higher and people might be put in danger. The question is, what is the alternative? At the end of the day, the only reason we have managed to bring back 195 hostages out of the 254 is because we used military pressure. So at the end of the day, you cannot bring back the hostages if we don't use military pressure. And that's why we had to renew it. It was very clear that in the second stage, Hamas is not agreeing to the terms that were proposed. They want to continue having a grip on the Gaza Strip so they can attack Israel again in the future.
There was never a second phase, right? There was only just a first phase. Second and third phase were just there in theory.
Well, it was there in theory. It could have been realized if Hamas came to think logically and understand that their control of the Gaza Strip is over, that they have to relinquish power, that we can agree for them peacefully exiting the Gaza Strip to give a chance to the Palestinian population to build a better future.
I understand that the logic here is that after the ceasefire has expired, giving too much time to Hamas during a peace time raises the possibility of them regrouping and possibly attacking. That's the rationale there. That makes sense. But the fact is, how long do we continue this cycle? Because one is you want to move beyond the present state. Then there is the question of hostages. And then there is a long-term peace negotiation. How do we move past that?
So there are two alternatives, Gaurie. One alternative is that they will get to the conclusion that they want us to stop the military campaign and they will go back to diplomacy in a constructive way, okay? The second option is that they will not cooperate. And at that point, we will have to decide whether to renew our ground invasion, to take over the Gaza Strip so we can clean it out from Hamas and transfer authority to a new power, a new moderate leadership, to international stakeholders that will take responsibility, that want to build Gaza again. So we prefer the first choice. We prefer to refrain from spilling blood. But if they don't give us any choice, we will have to enlarge this military campaign, and this can take a very long time.
This can take a very long time. In fact, the Prime Minister is also on record saying that this will take a long time.
Yeah.
What is the long term that we are talking about here?
Well, look, it depends on the situation on the ground and the capability of the IDF forces. At the end of the day, it is not easy to create a situation in which you uproot a terrorist organization that actually is taking off their uniform, blending into the population, and trying to play hide and seek, okay? So this will take time. It can take weeks, it can take months, we don't know. At the end of the day, what they have to understand is that we have the resolution, we have the resilience to continue with this, and we have the backing of the United States of America.
I was coming to just that do you think it's time for the Trump administration to invest more political capital into finding a solution when it comes to Gaza? Because they've proposed Trump Gaza, they've proposed reconstruction, which takes Palestinians out of that plan completely. But do you think it's time to now invest more political capital in finding a solution for the immediate?
Well, I think the Trump administration is really thinking outside the box. And not only that, is that they have decided by the renewed campaign against the Houthis that are undermining international trade, are terrorizing shipping companies, are extorting bribes out of them. They are sending a very clear message. They are going to give incentives to those who want to create peace, and they are going to do disincentives, negative incentives, and are going to strike those who are threatening peace. And I think this is a very important and consistent message that they are sending.
Okay.
We are in sync with that. I think that the only chance we have for peace in our region is when the radicals either are destroyed or they are put in a box.
Is the US on board with a long-term military plan that Israel has in mind?
As I told you, we are fully coordinated, and I think the administration...
For a long-term plan, not immediate. You mentioned long-term.
What the administration has said, and I'm just repeating what they said, they see a future of Gaza without Hamas. This is what has to happen. How it's going to happen, how long it's going to take, this is something that is completely up to Hamas. They can finish this by releasing the hostages they illegally took in a brutal way. They can finish this by relinquishing power in the Gaza Strip today.
Okay.
If they refuse, this can take a very long time.
Okay. Final question I want to ask you is that far-right elements far-right parties have come back to the government. They had exited when the ceasefire came in. They have now joined back the government. Does that mean no possibility of talks going forward? It's going to only be military action whichever way and however long it takes?
No, because if, as I said, Hamas agrees to the terms, then we can have peace today, irrespective of the composition of the Israeli coalition. What the right-wing parties, or some of them, have said in the past is that they don't believe that Hamas is willing to relinquish power. So we gave a chance with this diplomacy. We gave a chance with this ceasefire, despite the fact that we knew that Hamas is going to use the ceasefire in order to rearm and regroup. So
Have they?
Of course, they have recruited thousands of people during the ceasefire. They have reorganized their headquarters. They have been trying to organize new invasions towards Israel. So we took that risk, despite the fact that we knew it's going to be exploited by Hamas. But we wanted to give diplomacy a chance.